Hey guys, you probably saw the news that Pete Hegseth, he made a decree that the United States military is not going to support men that wear dresses. That they have a uniform code and you can't cross dress anymore in the military. They call it, I guess now, transgenderism. And throughout American history, they did not allow homosexuals in the military. You'd be kicked out. But definitely, you couldn't cross dress. In fact, in the show MASH, it was a popular TV show. They had a character, Corporal Klinger. He was trying to get out of the army in the Korean War, and so he dressed as a woman because he wanted to get kicked out on a Section 8, meaning he's crazy, because it was thought if you were a man and you thought you're a woman, you had a mental problem, and they didn't want you in the army. But it turns out this judge from Uruguay, she's an immigrant. She wasn't born in the United States, and she's a lesbian. She determined that no, the military has to accept cross dressers and they have to embrace it, even though we've never had that in our history. And this was an interesting ruling because it's like, well, where in the Constitution did Jefferson or Adams or Madison, did they envision that the Continental Army had to have cross dressers in it? I read the Constitution. I've never seen it. This is an interesting legal theory. So where did this lesbian judge from Uruguay come up with this? What was her precedent? What did she cite? Well, she gave a citation, and you know what her citation was? No, it wasn't to the Constitution. It was to the Broadway musical Hamilton. That's literally, I'm not joking. This is what she based her decision on. Not the U.S. Constitution, but I guess it's a gay, I never watched it. New York City, it was a popular thing with shit libs, Hamilton. This is what she based her decision on. All right. I thought of that today as I was driving back from Fayetteville to my mountain home. You see behind me? That's my view in my back window. It's a mountain. And I live in the middle of nowhere, but I drive through a kind of a small town of maybe about 3,000 people. It's quaint. It's a really nice town. There's really no diversity in it yet, thank God. And around 2:30 or 3, this elementary school gets out. And as you drive down the street, there's only one main street. You have to go slower because kids are getting out of school. And they have something called a crossing guard. And you guys are probably familiar with that. A crossing guard is typically like a retired parent that wants to help out the kids. And they get a fancy vest, and they get a stop sign thing, they get a hold. And so as the kids come to the curb after, they get out of the classroom, the crossing guard says, no, wait up here. It's not safe to cross yet. And then the crossing guard, he walks out, holds up his stop sign, and then all the kids like little ducklings across the road. It's cute. It's for safety. And the cars, you slow down because the crossing guard is coming out with a stop sign. And that's perfectly valid, right? And that's something no one thinks like, well, how dare you to tell us to stop? What's your authority? Who do you think you are? No, we're law-abiding people, and it makes sense. The school administration appoints a crossing guard to help protect the children, right? And this is a good thing. This is part of being an orderly society. It's kind of natural right-wing conservative values. This is what we do. We just don't speed around the crossing guard and say, to hell with you. No, we obey because it helps the society. It makes for a better place. And I thought of that, but with this whole judge incident, so if I could do the analogy, what if there was a little different situation? What if there was a new crossing guard that was appointed? And it wasn't some retired guy from the community. It was someone from Nigeria. And because one of the administration people of the previous administration of the school thought we needed to get a Nigerian immigrant to do this job. And let's say then, instead of holding the stop sign to let the kids pass, the Nigerian immigrant held the stop sign, and then he went in and started to rob people in their cars, saying, I'm the crossing guard, you got to give me your money, give me that money. And he started to rob everyone. Well, at that point, when you saw the Nigerian running out with the stop sign as a crossing guard, Would you stop? No, I wouldn't stop. I'll go around him because he's exceeded his legitimate authority. He's no longer legitimate. And you have no moral duty to follow someone in a position of authority if they abuse that authority. At that point, they become illegitimate. So that Nigerian crossing guard, by having a history of robbing people, by using the position, you no longer need to obey him. In fact, it's immoral to obey him in that situation. And this is how we on the right need to look at these judges. I mean, it's just crazy that we have immigrants that even weren't natural Americans as judges, federal judges. But these federal judges, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, which is take a look at the, let's say, an executive order and determine if it's constitutional based on the Constitution. That's their job. Because you remember in our system of government, the judge is not there to create legislation or to veto legislation. If you want to create legislation, that's for the Congress. And so if you want to create legislation, you run for Congress. And you're not there to veto legislation just because you don't like it. That's the executive branch. So run for president. You're just there to make sure it's constitutional. And in doing so, you have to look at the Constitution, not some gay musical from Broadway. That's not why you determine that. And what this lady judge is doing is no different than the Nigerians starting to rob the parents at gunpoint as a crossing guard. She is no longer a legitimate authority. She shouldn't have been there in the first place, and obviously she needs to be removed. She shouldn't be a judge. She probably shouldn't be in the country. But nevertheless, as a conservative value or as the right wing, we are under no obligation to follow her instructions. And I'm not just picking on her, there's other judges like this too. And when they exceed their authority, the proper response from the Trump administration is just to deny her authority. Say, you can make all the decrees you want, but we're not going to follow it. And what are you going to do about it? I mean, we have the United States Marshals. You have no authority. You have no way to enforce it. I guess you could complain to Congress and have them try to impeach me, but I'm not going to listen to you. No, we're not going to have cross-dressers in the military. And you can't cite Hamilton. That's just ridiculous. That's not a legitimate decision. You're not a legitimate judge. You may have been appointed, just like the crossing guard, and you may be wearing your black robe, just like the Nigerian crossing guard has his nice colored vest on, but your actions show that you're not legitimate. And we're not in a suicide pact. We have to destroy our country just to blindly follow your tyranny. And it is tyranny at that point because you're not elected. You're not basing it on the Constitution. You're just basing it on that you hate Trump and you have your own sexual perversions you want to push. That's not how you run a country. That's not how this country was established. So 100%. The Trump administration needs to refuse to abide by these crazy rulings. These judges are not legitimate. We shouldn't pretend they're legitimate. They're illegitimate judges. They shouldn't be judges. And it shouldn't be any different than some crazy homeless guy on the street shouting out decrees. You don't really listen to him. So this lesbian judge from Uruguay, she's just like a crazy homeless woman yelling out that because of this musical, we have to have cross-dressers in the military. No, we don't. We're not going to listen to you, babe. Talk to you guys later.